All right, so good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. I am Neeraj Kumar, and today we will talk about Azure AD Premium. We have been having this session for uh, a long time now, and in that series we have covered multiple topic on Azure IAM, which is Azure Identity and Access Management. So today we will talk about Azure AD Premium, which is an offering from Microsoft. Uh, you know, Obviously, we all of us have used Azure AD, which is the identity store for Azure and Azure Cloud. If you access any services, so today we will specifically talk about Azure AD Premium, which is one of the version of Azure AD. So Azure AD comes in multiple flavor or multiple edition. So Premium is, the highest edition. So let's get right into it. Okay, so what's Azure AD Premium, right? As I said, Active Directory comes into multiple editions. So you have free version, which all of us have used, and you get it by default when you create an Azure subscription. Your Azure AD version is a free. You're not charged anything for creating any users, any identities in there. It's free, but it has some limitation, which we'll talk about in next slide. Wherein I'm going to give you a comparison of different editions of Azure AD with the free version, basic, or premium. So the next version is the basic version, which is like it gives you advanced functionality than the free Azure AD version. Uh, and you get features which is included as a part of free, plus also some additional features which we'll see in the next slide. In case of premium, there are two offering. You have premium P1 and premium P2. So there is a minor difference in terms of premium P1 and P2. In P2 you get identity protection, which is, it will tell you about any end user has a risky, it will check if there is any vulnerability, if somebody is trying to exploit the username and password depending on the login pattern, and it gives you much more granular details. So for that you will need premium P2. So inside premium you have two flavors, P1 and P2. And then free version, which all of us have. Whenever you create a Azure subscription, you get it by default, and then you have basic. Next, let's move on to the many of us, like, I don't know if anybody has worked with Enterprise Mobility and Security, which is a SaaS offering from Microsoft for mobile device management and also for mobile application management. It also offers security modules as part of that. So if your organization has purchased enterprise mobility or EMS licenses, as a part of that license, you are given Azure AD Premium license. So they have different flavors. There are different licenses available under the EMS. So if you are part of EMS E3, you get AD Premium P1. And if you're part of EMS E5, which is the highest version of subscription that you can have in EMS, you get Premium P2. And in today's demonstration, we will see that uh, that we'll make use of EMS E5 because I have that subscription, and as a part of that subscription, my Premium P2 subscription or my Premium P2 of Azure AD is enabled. So I will leverage that to show some of the demonstration that we'll get into the action when we get into the demo piece. So some of the features of Azure AD Premium services. So the first one is which is the most important is Azure AD Privilege Identity Management. So what it does is, what's privilege identity? Any identity which has, like, higher privilege. It's not a non. It's an administrator. It could be a global admin. It could be password admin. It could be exchange admin. It could be link Skype for business admin, which has higher privilege than normal user. Now what happens is, when you have this privilege identities, you assign, let's say in your organization, if you're a 5 administrator, you will create 5 account, and then you will assign that role permanently. Now the more account you have, privilege account you have, the more chances are there for being targeted for hacking, or for exploitation or password in a brute force attack. So what Microsoft has, or in fact, it's increased for increased security, this is the trend in the industry that we're in, like, we are minimizing the use of privilege identity, but at the same time, we want to give out the privilege identity so that our day-to-day admin task doesn't suffer. So as a part of that, what happens is you are given just in time privilege identity. So if you need an administrative access, you will be granted that administrative access for 1 hour, or you can define that window, and after that 1 hour, that access is gone. You can also have your identities, which is of administrative privilege. You can assign it for 1 hour, 2 hour, or you can also put in approval cycle. So wherein say that, hey, I want to grant this right, I want to make users eligible for it, but when they request it, it has to come to that user's manager for approval. If that manager approves, then only he's granted that privileged role, right? You also get alerts. So some of this is the features which we'll see today in action as a part of the demo. The second feature that you get of Azure AD Premium Service is called Azure AD Identity Protection. That's what I told, that it's part of Azure Premium P2. So what it helps you is, if you have enabled it, you will be able to detect any kind of vulnerability. Now, vulnerability means, if somebody has tried to log in twice from 2 different locations, those kinds of, suspicious activities, those kind of vulnerability, or any user who has not enabled MFA, multi-factor authentication, those users will be reported. Those kind of things probably you will see is as a part of Azure Identity Protection. Now, this Azure Identity Protection is not restricted to only privileged identities, but for all the users, right? It could be your normal user also. So it's mainly what it does is generates a report for you. You can see the risky login. You can see your users who are affected, or some of the suspicious incident as I've outlined. So it will also show you that, and all these features, this part of the premium. If you have premium, you don't need to buy any multi-factor authentication service. It is included in this, and in past we have seen that when we have enabled MFA, we had to probably purchase that service through Azure Portal, and we had to pay either per user license mode or per access mode. But if you have premium license, it's by default enabled for each licensed user, and you can turn it on, and we'll see that the way we will turn out MFA. You also get self-service password reset. So what does mean in, let's say, if a user has forgotten the password, now he doesn't have to call the help desk to reset his password. He can use self-service password reset. The portal can go there, and if he has set up his profile correctly, so there are 2 options that he will be asked to set up, and the way you will configure your self-service password reset, or in short SSPR. And then in that case, he will be asked to set either his mobile number, backup email address, or security questions. Although the way there are 5-6 different settings that you can turn on. Out of that, you have to turn on minimum 1, or you can also turn on more than 1. So that setting, that's also available as a part of Premium, Azure AD Premium. And Azure AD Premium is can be subscribed separately also. So the charges that today I see is for premium, it's somewhere around $9 per user, and that's the retail price. Now it will depend on whether you are in the part of organization or individual, that you bought it, but that's the off-shelf price that Microsoft charges you. Also, you have self-service group management, wherein you can assign user can manage the group, and he or she can manage the group membership, and it's a self-service portal. So that kind of feature you get. Apart from that, you also get to more feature. One is called Azure AD Application Proxy, which we will kind of touch upon, but will not be able to demo it. So Azure AD Application Proxy is it's a way to expose your intranet application onto internet. So now if you have end user who is coming from internet and you want them to have access to your intranet application without having to VPN or set up any kind of VPN infrastructure, you can make use of Azure AD Application Proxy to publish intranet application onto internet, and the access to that can be controlled by Azure AD. And we have a slide on that, so we'll quickly touch on that. But this is something, a feature which is there, and you can enable this. But in order to do that, you need to have premium license. The another cool feature is which is called conditional access. So conditional access, as you know, name itself points out, is based on the condition, based on the parameters, based on how user is coming. If user is coming from, let's say, if user is coming from intranet, it's from trusted network. In that case, you can turn off MFA. Say, hey, that I have this user. If that user is coming from office network, coming from internet network, then I don't want him or her to use multi-factor authentication or second form of authentication. Instead of that, he will be the user will be bypassed, and the person won't be asked for MFA. But if that condition is not met, it means the person or the user is not coming from a trusted network, which means the user is coming from internet or from anywhere else. In that case, since the condition is not met, in that case it will be asked for additional security measures. So like, okay, now you'll have to authenticate with the second form of verification, which is the multi-factor authentication. So that feature you can set, and that's a really cool feature, which can make things easier for user when they're coming from a trusted network. So MFA is one piece. Also, there's a lot more settings that you can set on the conditional access side. So I'll move on to the next slide. Right now, what you see is a feature comparison between the four editions of Azure AD. So you have free version, then you have basic edition, and then premium P1 and premium P2. Now this chart I have taken from borrowed from Microsoft website, so it is also available there. Anybody can, and at the end of this session I will publish those as part of my article and include this. But if you look at the difference between the free and the other basic or premium, is there is a limit for directory objects. So how many objects you can create? In case of free version, you are limited to 500,000 objects, which users group, in anything and everything in that you can have 500,000. If it is more than that, then probably you won't be able to use it from you will have to upgrade to basically basic or anything that you have premium or premium P1, P2, right? Also, if you look at the basic side, you have almost all the features, like you have group-based access management, self-service password reset for cloud users. So if you have cloud-only identities, it's available in basic, premium P1 and P2. Application proxy, as I said. So if you want to use application proxy, you will have to have basic version, and then basic version upward, right? So if you have basic version upward, you will be able to make use of application proxy. SLA is where Microsoft guarantees the uptime. You get that guarantee only in the basic premium versions. The other features for the premium, which is not available in basic, is self-service group and app management. We talked about that. It's only available in premium P1 and P2. Password reset self-service, SSPR, is only available in premium. You can also set up a multi-factor authentication for cloud and on-premise. So in case of on-premise, if you want to set up, you can set up MFA server. That's available in P1 and P2. And almost all the features like Azure AD Connect Health. So it also monitors your Azure AD Connect Health, and if there is any problem, it report on that, which is again part of the premium feature. Conditional access is part of premium. Then you have conditional access based on the group. So there are two ways you can set up your conditional access. One is based on the group and the location. As I said, if it is trusted, untrusted network, or you belong to a certain group, you're part of privileged group, and then you want them to have MFA turned on. Or you can also have conditional access based on the device state, like if it is a managed device or it's an untrusted device. Based on that, if you want to do that, that feature is available in P1 and P2 both. And if you look at closely in terms of what P2 gives you, which P1 is not available, is your identity protection. So identity protection is only available in premium P2. Then you have privilege identity management, PIM, which we talked about. Again, PIM is only part of premium P2. It's not part of the P1, so if you don't have, then you cannot use it. So these are the two features, if you look at it, which is basically available in P2 but not in P1. Rest other features is almost there in premium P1. Okay, I will move on. So moving on to the next slide. In this slide, we're talking about the MFA, multi-factor authentication. We know what is multi-factor authentication. So this is second layer of authentication or second form of authentication. Is something like you log in with your username and password, which means you have something that you know. Now your password is what you know, and then the second form of authentication is something which you have. So that have portion could be your phone, and that phone can be configured. So when you log on, that second form of authentication, your code can be sent over the phone to you. In the way you can receive the code is it could be either a phone call or or a text message. Sorry, it's a spelling mistake. It could be a phone call or it could be a text message, or Microsoft also has an authenticator app, which is Microsoft Authenticator app. You can configure your mobile app. Now, mobile app can be configured in two ways. One is by form of notification. So you will get the log on option and then you will get option of approve and deny. So that notification you can configure, or you can also configure it in verification code wherein every 30 or 45 seconds, I don't know exactly, it generates the code, and then when you log on you will just copy or you will just type the code which is currently displayed in your application. You can also use third-party OAuth token, which is like if you want to integrate with any third party, then in that case probably it comes in handy. But multi-factor authentication supported either by a phone call or by text message or by mobile application today. And if you have in third party, you can also use OAuth token. So moving on. What you see over here is this is Azure AD application proxy. Just forgive me for the wrong title. It's not the privilege identity manager. So Azure AD application proxy, right? So I talked about if you have any application which is sitting on-prem and you want to expose that application, which is Windows integrated, which understands Kerberos authentication, which is a legacy application, or it's configured for Windows integrated authentication, and you want to publish that onto the web. In that case, you can make use of application proxy. Now, Azure application proxy has two components. One component which is sitting in cloud, which is when you configure it, you get it as a software as a service or platform as a service, you can say. And the second component is sitting on-prem. Now this is a little tool which you have to install on-prem and it will run as a service. This service is what makes everything possible. So when a user logs in, the user will go and talk to Azure AD and authenticate. Once the authentication happens, the token is generated. That token is passed on to Azure application proxy. Now this proxy, which will extract the information necessary to talk to the application proxy connector, which is sitting on-prem. Now it could be user principal name or SPN or the token which is basically required to authenticate you against your on-prem Active Directory. So your user is going to present that token. Application proxy will extract the information and push and it will communicate to the Azure application proxy connector sitting on-prem. So the connector will receive it. Again, connector doesn't accept any inbound connection, it's always outbound. So basically, there is a virtual space here, or you can say Azure Service Bus, wherein your application proxy will put the content there which is required, or token information, user information. This guy over here makes an outbound call, retrieves that, and then on behalf of the user, using constrained delegation, Kerberos constrained delegation, it will authenticate to your local Active Directory. Once that authentication happens, and behalf of the user, it will go and talk to the web server, which is internal, and then in turn, get the page and renders it to the user. So this is a way that Microsoft, is trying to help the customer who don't have very expansive DMZ-based infrastructure and still want to expose their internet application to end users for, easy consumption, for ease of use. In that case, you can use, Azure AD application proxy. Now, the way it works is, as I said, you have an on-prem connector which you need to install on a server, and this can be scaled out. It means you can have multiple application proxy connector, which can be working in tandem in round robin. So any of the server can pick up your connection request and respond. So if your proxy one goes down, the second proxy will take over. So that way, you can also, it's highly scalable. So depending on what's your workload, what's your environment, and how often your user access, what's the user traffic, you can scale out your Azure Application Proxy Connector. Okay, so any question here? No question? Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. The next slide, as I said, about the conditional access. So conditional access is wherein you identify your conditions, you set your conditions, and based on that conditions, it could be conditions for device, whether it's a domain join, is it compliant, or it's platform type, or whether it's lost and stolen based on that condition, or it could be based on the user identity, user attributes, like whether the user is part of a privileged group or certain group that you shouldn't be allowed or should be allowed. You can also set the your conditional access on per application basis. So you can say there are some sensitive applications, like your finance applications. You say in that case, you can say that I need MFA to be turned on all the time. It doesn't matter whether they're coming from intranet or from extranet, right? So both the cases. So you have on the left side, you can define a set of conditions, and then on the right side, you see a set of requirements. Now the requirements could be that your MFA should be turned on, or you allow it, or you block it, or you ask them to enroll for MFA, or these four actions which you can take over here. Right? So that's a conditional access, and this is part of Azure AD Premium. Okay, so that's it. Any question before we get into the demo section? Any question from the previous slides?
Neeraj, Naresh here.
Yeah,
I just want to know for the application you're telling Kerberos. So if we certificate authentication is also possible in this, or this happens under HTTPS.
Yeah, so the application proxy in cloud and the connector, they talk over SSL, so they have certificate authentication that's happening between these two.
Okay, and this Kerberos is going inside that SSL.
Yeah, so basically what happens, your user gets authenticated from Azure AD, and then information about that user is extracted from the token, like could be user principal name and service principal name. This information is extracted, and then application proxy basically extracts it and put it into, as I said, a virtual queue, right? Which is Azure Service Bus. And then the application proxy uses certificate-based authentication to retrieve that data from there, and uses UPN and SPN. Now that UPN SPN has to be configured for delegated constraint delegation, Kerberos constraint delegation. So that setting is separate. When you set up this connector, that will configure the Kerberos constraint delegation for that service account, the service principal name for your application, so that this connector can request a Kerberos ticket on behalf of user, right? So basically what it is doing is this connector over here is requesting a ticket, not for itself, but on behalf of the user, and that user exists in Azure AD, right? So Kerberos delegation cannot work if you have not enabled the delegation. So earlier it was delegation. Now what is Microsoft is supporting Kerberos constraint delegation, which you can constrain it only for one application. Earlier it was like, I have delegated. That means Kerberos ticket can be requested for any kind of resources, right? But now you can constrain
Okay.
it. You can constrain it that okay, I've delegated it, but only for this application. So when you're requesting Kerberos ticket for this application or this resource, then only it will succeed.
Okay. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Very good
Yes.
question.
So Neeraj, this application proxy connector, and is this sitting in the separate VNet or it's in the on-premise we are configuring this?
So this is you know so this is in on-prem, right? So what the purpose of the um, application proxy connector is to bring out or expose your intranet application onto internet to your end user or authenticated end user. So your user doesn't have to be in VPN to access intranet application. So this is on-prem. But theoretically, nobody's stopping you for demo purpose. You can set up your IIS server in a VNet and you can publish that over using application proxy. The same configuration can be done in the VNet also.
So is this
But
application? Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
application proxy, if you're using in Azure as a setup, your application proxy will sit in VNet. But if it is on-prem, it will sit in on-prem. And it needs outbound connection on, again, same thing, ATN 443.
Okay, so if we try to install this application proxy connector in my on-premise, so will it be some kind of EXE like we have the Azure AD Connect?
Yes, it's an EXE.
Okay, thank you.
And this should be application proxy connector should be in DMZ, right? Non-premise.
You can install it at both the places, DMZ and non-DMZ. It really doesn't have to be in DMZ. The reason is it's not accepting any inbound connection. It's always making outbound connection, which means from intranets going on to internet. Nobody is coming from internet back to your connector. If that would have been the case, then probably you'll put in DMZ. But that doesn't mean that you cannot put in DMZ. But the challenge that you will have is if you put this in DMZ, which means it will be a workgroup machine, your Windows integrated authentication will not work. So if you really want your Windows integrated authentication to work for your end users, that is single sign-on when you're on-prem, in that case, this connector should be domain joined in the same domain.
And then you can open the ports. Required ports.
The port is only ATN 443 and that too outbound. Okay. So ideally the right setup is you will put this in intranet and enable this outbound connection, internet connection on port ATN 443.
Okay. Outbound connection means there should be a netting done, like internal to external.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, if you want to do netting, you can put in you can have your internet proxy server sitting over here. It doesn't matter. It can go anywhere. You can allow direct connection, or you can redirect your connection through internet proxy, whatever is convenient to you, whatever is your organization policy. The way any end user laptop sitting on-prem will access internet, you have to allow it the same way. Nothing special. So that means you don't have to have DMZ, you don't have to have load balancer, you don't have to have anything and everything which goes in for a DMZ network. You really don't need that big infrastructure.
Okay.
So we'll have to open port 80 and 443 for specific URL for the application proxy, or there will be specific IP?
Right now, Microsoft has you will have to open that 8443 to Azure Data Center IP range. So there is a range which is published, I think, in some fifth or sixth session back. I have shared that article wherein you have the published IP range of Microsoft Azure Data Center. So you will open your port to those ranges, or you just allow 8443 outbound internet connection, which is safe connection. Anybody wants that internet connection for 443. You're not only opening any non-internet or non-HTTP or HTTPS port. It's only HTTP, HTTPS port.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, then let's get straight into our demos section. So, okay. All right. As I said, I have Enterprise Mobility Suite E5 subscription. As a part of that subscription, I have Azure AD Premium P2. The subscription. So I just want to show you right now I'm logged into my O365 portal, and if you
Neeraj, you are not audible.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I was muted. Oops. Okay, so I don't know where I stopped, but so I just want to show you what kind of subscription I have in Office 365, because I'm going to use that Office 365 Premium, Azure AD Premium subscription to complete today's demo. And I have this Enterprise Mobility EMS E5 subscription, which gives me access to Premium P2. If you don't have this subscription, in that case you can sign up for Azure AD Premium trial. It's valid for 90 days. You wish to, it gives you 100 license and you can do your demo and all. After that, you can either extend it or you can end the trial. But in today's case, in the past I have activated my premium Azure AD premium trial, but at the same time, I've also activated my Enterprise Mobility Security EMS E5, which gave me access to premium P2. So today we will make use of that. And if we get into much deeper, so if I come to one of the users, so let me come to the users and I'll show you that I'll have to, before I start making use of the premium E5 or, actually Azure AD Premium, which is part of EMS E5, I will have to assign a license to one of the users. So what I have done is I have created a user, and probably today I'm going to borrow Prayesh's name. So I've created this user, my colleague Prayesh, and I have assigned him, if you see over here, I've assigned him, EMS E5 license. So what that means he's also getting Azure AD Premium license. So if I click on edit, I can show you what he gets as a part of this license. So if I expand it, you can see that not that one, this one, right? Is getting Azure AD Premium P2. So which means this user is fully capable of making use of Azure AD Premium P2 features, anything and everything associated. And also, as I said, the premium, as a part of premium feature, you also get Azure AD multi-factor authentication. So you can see that the multi-factor authentication is also as a part of this feature. And obviously P2 means if you have P2, you also have P1, right? That goes without saying. So either way, I mean, if you want to make use of, in my case, I have Enterprise Mobility Suite, so that's how I have enabled it. If you don't have EMS and you're trying a trial, in that case, you can turn on your trial by going into Azure AD property, your Azure Active Directory property. So you come over here, and then there is something called, if you'll come over here into the overview, it will show you as a trial, want to turn on. So, or any of the services which is not part of include. For example, let's look at the conditional access. So conditional access is not part of that. On the top, it will show you sign up for trial, and you can sign up for the trial. But in my case, I already have this E5 license, hence I don't have to sign up for the trial. So what I will do now next is we will take a demo on the privilege identity management, which means we will configure a user, in this case Praise user ID, and make him eligible for being a Azure AD global admin, and we will grant him access only for 1 hour, and then we will also revoke the right, and we will see that how it works in terms of the operations or functionality. Right, that's a privilege identity management, which is just-in-time access. So if I decide today, okay, I want Presh to be able to, global admin and do some task in Azure AD, but I want to grant him only for 1 hour or so, I can do that through the privilege identity manager, right? So for that, what I will do is there is a new portal. It's called Azure AD portal. So you can go adportal.azure.com, which is a dedicated portal for Azure AD, and you log in. So basically, I'm going to log in with my credential, and this one is configured for multi-factor. So I will have to accept the login multi-factor code on my mobile. So I said approve. Now it let me logged in. So once I logged in, you can see, I have a whole bunch of services related to my Azure AD Premium. I have my Azure AD Privilege Identity Management over here, and then I have my Azure AD Identity Protection. So let's go and click on Azure AD Privilege Identity Management. So once you click here, you have certain options which you can look at this, right? So you have, if I click on my roles, what it will show me is who I am and what kind of role is assigned to me, since I'm a global admin and I have all the roles assigned, and I was the first one who was configured with who was configuring with privilege identity manager. So I was the first administrator, and when you do that, you will be asked to turn on your MFA, multi-factor authentication. If you don't have your MFA turned on, you cannot be privilege identity manager. So the first person, the first global admin, Azure AD global admin, who turns on privilege identity management becomes your the first security administrators or privilege administrator. So let's go ahead and click, let's see what my role is, right? So if you look at it, my role is, I have been given 3 roles. This was originally what I was a global administrator, and then when I turned on the privilege identity management, I also assumed these 2 additional roles. One is security administrator, one is privilege role administrator. Now these roles are part of privilege identity management. In your case, you will have to turn this feature on when you go into your overview section, but in my case I have already turned it on, so that's why I have this offer. Now what we will do now is you will head over to your Azure AD directory roles. Now this is where it will show you you can configure your Azure AD roles, like what all roles you have. So if you click on manage on the role sections, here you will see all your users who have been granted any kind of administrative or privileged role. So for example, I'm a global admin, and I also have 3 more global admin. Now you don't want everybody to global admin. So for example, I have also assigned Prayesh to be global admin. So what we will do in this demo is we will downgrade him and we will make him eligible. Right now you look at the status, right? His status is permanent. What does that mean? That means he is a global admin forever, right?
Yes, you cannot see your screen now.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can see.
I don't know. I mean, people
I
can.
can see.
Yeah,
I can see.
I can. Even I can.
Maybe you can rejoin, Vijay. I don't know. It's some problem.
Yeah, let me rejoin. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So if you look at it, the role that that you have is your permanent, which means that Prayesh is a permanent global admin. But now, what as a part of just in guys, if you're not speaking, please put yourself on mute, please. Okay. All right. So in terms of this permission, which is shown over here, it shows permanent. That means that user is permanently assigned the role of global admin. Now, as I said, it's the more administrator you have, the more chances you have for hacking, the more chances you have for attack, and that's why you want to limit the number of administrators into your Azure AD. So what we will do is we will make this user instead of permanent, we will make him just eligible for just-in-time request. So I say I go into this user, and right now you say it's permanent, so I will make him eligible. Now what that does is that will let Prayesh request this role. When he logs on and he goes into his privilege identity management portal, he will be able to request this role, that I should be granted this role, and then this role flows into his manager, and and that manager can approve it. Now that setting can be configured as in how that role should be. So if you come into the access reviews, or let's come into the settings. Yeah. So if you look into the privilege roles, right? So if I come into, where is my global admin? Global admin, here it is. So I can set for each of the privilege roles that I have, I can set how the activation should be for how long. So for example, I'm just looking at global administrator. And by the way, these are the roles that you can manage in the privilege identity management. Remember, you cannot manage every role in PIM. You can only manage Azure AD roles or Exchange, or the Sky for Business, or Intune Service Administrator, these kind of roles. But you cannot manage your Azure Resource Manager role. You cannot manage those here. You can only manage Azure AD and O365 roles, and that too in O365, not all the roles, but like SharePoint Administrator, Sky for Business Administrator, or you have your Exchange administrators that you can manage, plus Azure AD privilege role. So right now what we are doing is we are saying that, hey, whenever there is a global administrator role request, how that should be handled. So here you specify the activation period, for how long that activation should be. So you can set for 1 hour. So if once it is activated, it will be available only for 1 hour. After that, it will be automatically discarded, or that user will be taken out of that group, right? That you can set. The second section is about the notifications. So if you turn it on, so what will happen is when this user gets activated for global admin role, it will generate an email to the admin guy, the person, whoever is the person, and that admin will get an email. Obviously, when you configure privilege identity manager, at that point of time, your email, what you put in, so you will receive an email notification, and we'll see that once this user gets activated, I will receive an email notification as a part of that. Then you have something called incident and request ticket. So if you want your user that as a part of tracking system, you want them to first raise a request ticket in your system, and then only they should be able to activate this role. In that case, you can set this to enable. So what will happen is, as a part of this, user will be asked to put in the incident number or the service request number that he has raised in your ticketing system, for your evidence purpose, that you can do it. And then the next is multi-factor. By default, the multi-factor is turned on, and you cannot really disable it because it's a global admin account and it's a part of the administrative credential that is turned on. So right now I haven't turned on the multi-factor authentication for Priyesh, but we'll have to turn that on, otherwise it's not going to work for his user ID. Then you also have, if you come down, you have, this is something called require approval. So if you turn it on, so basically the approval request will come to the privilege identity manager. So in this case, I'm the privilege identity manager, and I will have to approve it before even he can log in, right? So this is the group specific configuration. You can have separate configuration for separate groups. Like for example, for global admin is a very powerful, and you really want to be the highest security accorded here. But if you have any other role, like like directory readers and other role, in that case you can probably you don't turn on multi-factor authentication, right? You don't require approval, or you don't want notification, those kind of, or probably you want notification but you don't want user to really put in the system and track it. So these settings. So right now we are going to, since I have made him eligible for global administrator role, so hence we will look at closely the settings of global admin for privilege identity privilege role. So you see that it will generate an email notification, so I will get that one. I have turned off I really don't have incident ticketing system, so I will just set it to disable. Multi-factor will be enabled by default. And then it requires approval, yes, so that I can approve that request. And yeah, so that's it. So let's go ahead and enable him for global admin. So let's come to the users, and here is my users. So right now you can see that Preyes has been enabled for global administrator, but he's eligible, not permanent, right? So that means he will have to assume this role, and that role assumption will be based on the condition that I have set up. So he will be asked to turn on his MFA. He will be asked to configure his not only the MFA, but also he will have to configure his user ID and password, and then he will be asked for a request. His approval will come to me and I will approve that request. So let's go ahead quickly do it. Let me open an incognito window. And I will go to portal.azure.com. And I try to log in as Prish. Okay, let's sign in. Later. So now what I'll have to do is I will have to go into my privilege identity role. So if I come into this more services, and here I should be able to see my privilege identity management, or if not, then let's go into the Azure AD first. And under this, I should have options to request the Azure AD role, right? So let's verify if I can get that access. Oh, let's search privilege identity manager. Okay, so here I am. Now if I come in my roles, right, so this is I'm logged on with my user, and I say come in my roles, you can see that Prayesh is configured for a global admin, right? And you see over here he is getting an option to request the activation, which means that he can, if let's say he logged on and he needs a global admin right to perform certain tasks, and he want to request that. So basically he can do that, right? So let's go ahead and request this activation. But since as you know that global admin, I have configured that MFA should be turned on. So what it is asking, Priyesh, that you have to turn on your multi-factor authentication. That's what it's saying, verify your identity before proceeding. So I will go ahead and click on verify my identity. And it says, right, if you look at it, it says the admin has required you that you set up this account for additional security verification, which is nothing but multi-factor authentication, and it says set up now. So I will go ahead and do that setup. And then it's asking me how do you want to verify. So depending on, so what I'll do is I will say mobile app. I want to configure his MFA through mobile app, and I say how do you want to receive the notification. So either I can receive a notification on my phone, my Microsoft Authenticator app, or if I don't, it's the most convenient way to do that, because you just get a notification and you say approve or deny. Whereas if you say use verification code, in that case it generates 6-digit or 8-digit character which you have to type in. So I don't really want to do that. So I will say receive notification for verification, and I say set up now. Now what this will do is it will generate a QR code which I need to scan on my Microsoft Authenticator. Now this step you won't be able to see it because I'm doing it on my phone. So I have this app called Microsoft Authenticator. So under there you will go in accounts and say add account, and when you say add account, you get 3 options. You get personal account, work or school account, or other account like Google and Facebook. In this case it is your, for me it's a work and school account, it's not a personal account. So I will select work or school account. Now the moment I do that, my camera fires up and it is trying to scan it, and it added the account successfully. So now this account is configured in my application. I say next. Basically what's doing now is checking the status of the activation. It will check the status, and after it checks it, it should be able to do it. So it says the mobile app has been configured for notification verification code. Because it checked it, I also added that account in my application, which is Microsoft Authenticator app, and I say next. So now what it's going to do is it will generate a notification on my app. It's trying to see that whether I can respond to it. So I got the notification and I say approve, and this is again is happening on my mobile. The moment I said approve, it says you got validated. You can specify your number, so I will just put in any number. Okay, and it's done. So now Prey should be able to activate the global admin role. Now it's set up with MFA. So here you go. Right now it logged me back into here, and it's giving me option to activate it. Now this is not gonna immediately activate it, right? Because it's a global admin role of Azure AD, and I have set up that when he requests it, it should be routed to the privilege identity manager, and that manager should approve it. So let's go ahead and activate this. And you will see it's asking for region for role activation. So I'll say demo purpose, and I say okay. So it will say that your activation is pending for approval. Correct? You can see that it's saying it's activation because I've configured my approval to be such that this has to be approved before he can start using it. So now let's head back to the my global admin portal. So I come here, and if I come here look into the approve request, right? So if you just head over to here, I can see that I have a request from Priyesh, and he has requested that he want to assume the role of global administrator. And I can, whether deny it or approve it. So in both options you have. So I will say go ahead and approve it. Now approve it. So before even we approve it, let's head back to the role and responsibility that Prayesh has, right? So if I come into this user and I say users and group, and let's look at Prayesh, right? So Prayesh user ID, and let's look at this. So if you look at it, let's look at where is his permissions, right? So his directory roles. So his directory role is user currently, right? Because the permission is still pending and the request is still pending. And I have to grant him the request, and after that you will see that he will take on the role of administrator. So I just want to show you before I approve his request, and then once I approve his request, he will take on the role of global administrator. So let's come back here, and I'm trying to approve him. Demo purpose. I say approve. Okay, so this is done. Now I don't have any approval pending, so let's head back to this one and let's refresh that page once again. You can see, right, it's changed to the global direct administrators, right? Earlier he was shown as a user, now he is a global administrator. Now once you have given this role, you can also revoke it. Like you realize that this user is done with the administrator work that he has done, and after that he shouldn't have access to that. You can also revoke the permission if you want to, right? So that's what you can do it. So let's say if you want to revoke it, let's go back. Where is my, here it is. Okay, so this is him. Now if I come over here, so let's look at the rules. Priyesh has this role and he is eligible for how long? He is eligible for 1 hour. So 10:34 we have made him eligible, so he's eligible for 1 hour. I can go in here and either I can say make perm or I can remove it. So when I remove it, so let's say I have granted him for 1 hour, but then maybe during this I realize that he's doing something which is not supposed to doing, and then I want to take away his rights. So I can remove it, or you can wait for naturally 1 hour, which will set the expiry. But in this case I will go ahead and remove it. Yes. Now this is changing the user assignment, and now if I come back, head over, then you can see that global admin Priyesh is not there. Now if I go back to his login prompt and I come back to profile and then once again to directory roles, is back to user, right? So you saw that we have configured the just-in-time request for global admin role. We configured the settings, we configured the approval settings, we configured the MFA settings, we also configured the MFA for Priyesh, and he requested the role by going into Azure AD and Privilege Identity Manager. From there he requested this role for eligible, as a Privilege Identity Manager. I approved that request, and you saw that he became global admin of Azure AD, and then we also removed him from that role. So this is what Privilege Identity Management in nutshell is. It's just in time administration, which means you don't have to give your administrative privilege for lifetime or till that user is in your company. You can just have it. You can have assigned for 1 hour, or you can have assigned for, let's say, 1 day or so. If you have any person coming on board and he will perform some critical task and he needs administrative rights. In that case, you can just assign it for a day or two, and then when it is done, it's automatically back. You don't have to really worry about how many admin accounts I have, how many has to be removed, and those audit details. You really don't have to worry about it. Okay, so that was privilege identity management. Let's see. Any question so far on the PIM?
Is there any auditing feature like AWS have a cloud trial or?
Yeah, so if you look at it, this is what directory rules audit history. You can see all your, privilege access requests or the requests that have enabled. You can see that I unassigned this role, so you can see action unassigned. Then praise has activated. It says activation. Activation was approved. You can see all those audit trials here. So this is for privilege identity management. You can see all your audits here.
Where we define the approver?
So your approval will be as a part of, when you activate it, at that point of time, whoever is part of your, security administrator role or the privilege role administrator, that's where he will come. So I get the email over here for any kind of approval request. Anything is activated, I get an email. So whoever will be privilege role administrator, they will get an email and they can approve it.
So I have a question. Like, if I want to all these users, whoever is going to access the Azure AD, Azure portal, I want to restrict them from a definite IP. Like, I don't want them to access the cloud. I want them to access.
Yeah, so you're referring to something called conditional access. So we talked about that, in fact, in the PowerPoint slide. It looks like maybe you missed it, but you can restrict it through conditional access, which is as a part of Azure AD, and you can set those settings. So if you come into Azure, I really didn't want to get into the off topic, but this is where you'll assign the conditional access, and here you can specify your location. So your condition could be based on the location. You can configure your trusted IPs over here, and you can add your intranet IPs, your office IPs, and you can configure that. And you can say that if you're coming from these IPs, I don't want you to use MFA. You can set all those settings using conditional access.
Okay, gotcha.
Hello, Neeraj. I have a query.
Yeah.
So, Neeraj, I would like to ask about the multi-factor.
Yeah.
Suppose I log into the server, any of the server in my environment, and as soon as I put my credential there, I would like to have the secondary authentication. Maybe it could be the OTP that I get on the phone, or maybe the app-based authentication. Can this be done?
So Microsoft has two MFA offering, MFA Cloud and MFA Server. So MFA Server is on-prem. Now I think we have covered that in previous sessions. So MFA Server is what you will utilize if you really want authentication for on-prem servers. So like when you log in RDP or when you're logging into Citrix remote sessions, in that case you'll have to configure MFA Server on-prem, and that MFA Server can be integrated with your RDP sessions, and the user can use multi-factor authentication. But you cannot use cloud MFA for on-prem servers. You can only use MFA for application access. So when they're accessing Azure portal or they're accessing any application which is published onto your access panel inside the Azure AD.
So actually, we do not have any workload on the on-prem, so everything is best in the cloud. So in that case, we need to.
So you will have to set up an MFA server in your VNet if you really want to use, MFA for admin login. You'll have to set up MFA server inside your VNet, and also you'll have to configure your remote routing and access services. There is a whole article, which walks you through how to configure MFA for a regular user login onto RDP server.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, so I will quickly move on to, we saw that privilege identity management, and there are other options which you can configure. So I really won't go into all those details, but we have seen, we have approved the request. You can look at your audit history if you really want to. Who has done what and those kind of roles and responsibilities, you can say it. So next we will move on to the Azure AD identity protection. So Azure AD identity protection, as I said, PIM is restricted to the privileged groups, privileged users, whereas in the identity protection is for all the users. So basically, what it is you can say it's a security tool for your identity management. It helps you to identify any kind of attempt to violate your user credentials, or any attempt to hack it, or any suspicious activity. It will show you all those. Again, it's part of premium P2. Privilege identity management and identity protection both are part of premium Azure AD premium P2 edition. It's not available in P1 or lower versions, right? So if you look at it, I have this flag is saying user is flagged for risk. If you click on this, so it will show you what really it meant. So it's saying I don't have MFA, turned on for all the users, and hence this is, so it is policies enforcers off. So I should be turning on the multi-factor authentication. That's one of the suggestion which is given. If I look at user flagged for risk, so if any suspicious activity, so you see one account, which is my account, is showing one risk, and risk level is medium. Now if you click on that, it will show you the details, as in really what it is, right? So it says impossible travel to a typical location. So let's see what it says, right? It says sign in originating from geographically separated location, right? So which means there are two different locations. The same person is at two different location, and which is impossible to travel between the two location. That's what it's trying to say. It's impossible for the user to have traveled. So if anomaly is detected, and it does, Microsoft has its own engine which it uses for protecting its own identities, live identities, and there are billions of hits that Microsoft gets, and it protects it. So now Microsoft has brought that expertise in terms of by giving this you as a service, which is Azure AD identity protection, and it uses this algorithm, to detect any suspicious activity onto your account. And now Microsoft has handed it over in hand of yours, and if you use this identity protection, it gives you all sort of risk events. If anything that it thinks that somebody or your user account is at risk, you can look at it. Risk events, it will show you any kind of risk, like obviously this user was flagged for risk, so what kind of risk it is. Medium detection was offline, and location, it's impossible travel to location. So, and when was it updated? 26th 7th May, right? So this is where it has three settings. You can go through it. So you have investigate, wherein you will look at the investigation and perform your investigation. You can also look at the vulnerability. So as I said, there are 9 users without MFA turned on. So that's something which has identified it as a vulnerability. Again, this vulnerability is related to identity. Okay, it has nothing to do with system vulnerability. System vulnerability is Azure Security Center, or OMS, security and compliance, that will report onto that. But this vulnerability is purely focused for Azure AD identities. So you have risk event, you have user flagged for risk, you have vulnerability. You can configure multi-factor authentication from here. You can specify that this should be assigned to all users or to certain groups. You can also specify the controls or the access method that you want. And again, as I said, you want to enforce the policy, or you just keep it just turned on for some time, and then you want to enforce it later, so that you can do it. These are some of the configuration items that you can do it, like user risk policies. Again, depending on conditions that you set, you can identify your policy. You can specify that, probably the risk is that you can define the risk level from medium, high to low, depending on what's your feasibility or what's your comfort, or what's your definition of risk. You can define those. Then you have sign-in risk policies. These are some of the configurations that you can do with your privilege identity protection, which is, again, as I said, Azure Identity Protection. Privilege Identity Manager is for privilege accounts. Azure AD Identity Protection is for all your identities. It's not exclusively for privileged users. Okay, I think that's it. Any question on identity protection?
Can we say identity protection as a backup, like before sync we took any backup or something like that?
Sorry, I didn't understand your question. Can you repeat it? What you want to achieve?
Like, can we say that identity protection is a backup, or like somebody deletes the account or something?
It's not a backup as such, but it helps you to identify any weak account or any account which is typically can be targeted for exploitation. It lists you, or any anomaly in your user account uses. Like, for example, a user logs on from America, and after half an hour the same user logs on from China. It's impossible, right? The user to travel to China from America in 1 hour, 1.5 hour. So it will detect all those anomalies and it will flag it for you.
So how?
Hello.
How is it? How is it different from Office 365 Advanced Security Management?
Well, I mean, that's a good question, but I don't have visibility in O365 Advanced Security Management. But probably, I can dig deeper into it, and then maybe I can get an answer for you.
Sure, thank you so much.
Needed prayers here.
Yeah.
Just to think, David told that 1 hour before probably he is logging from India, and after 1 hour he is logging from the US.
Yeah.
So just to think that he is having a VM configured maybe from client or whatever, and he is doing a remotely using the clicks. He has gone to VM and now he is going to log in from the US. So in that case, it may happen, right?
Yeah, it can happen. So yeah, it can happen in some cases, right? Not all users. So you can say that you can safely ignore it. You have option, right? Okay, I see that this is an event, but I know that this user has remoted in from the different locations. But usually for normal users, indie users, right? They don't have this, like wherein they will remote in. It's only for admin users, I understand. But for indie users, how is it possible? Who don't have any administrative access?
Yeah, sounds good, perfectly.
So can we set the rules for those admin users so it will not flag those alerts?
Yeah, you can configure, right? So you can see here, you can specify your user risk policies, and you can specify the conditions. All those settings you can set over here. So there are a whole lot of stuff which you can do in here in terms of defining what is really risky, what is not risky, what is medium risk and high risk. You can specify all those settings here.
Okay.
Can we schedule a policy of this identity?
Schedule. So you're talking about privilege identity management, wherein you want to give.
Yes. If in case my user is in risk on vulnerabilities, in case automatically it should trigger to my group ID.
Yeah. It will. You can set up the notification. So
yeah, that is set. Notification, that's fine. But my question is, I want to schedule it. So I can every 30 days or else every 60 days. I have to schedule it. I have to understand about the audit of risk, which are the policies and the risk.
You can you can turn on your weekly email digest, so it will send you every week email for all your activities and all your risk, everything.
Okay.
And you can also alert it. So you can set if you want to. You can set the alert, like if I have low, medium, and high, please send it immediately. If you need, like in your case, you said you need weekly, you can set it weekly. And you can also script it so that it can generate that report and send it to you on a set frequency. There are whole stuff that you can do through the PowerShell, which is not still available in the portal. So Microsoft, or the way it's released in Microsoft, any new feature is first it's released as Azure SDK, Software Development Kit, as in form of API. Then it makes its way to Azure CLI or Azure PowerShell, and then finally it comes over, everything is tested, everything is done, then finally it comes over to the Azure portal. And there are many tasks which still today you can't do it through Azure portal. You have to script it. You have to use Azure PowerShell or Azure CLI, for those activities. For example, I know that in Azure disk encryption, you can still not do it. Certain activities you cannot do it through GUI. You have to go through PowerShell.
So all these things which you are saying, like Azure AD identity protection, then regarding the conditional access, all these are part of Azure AD Premium, or this is?
Yeah, it's AD. Yeah, it's so let's get back to this slide. Probably this will help you understand. Right. So I think we covered this. Let's swap the screen. We covered this earlier. So I don't know if you can see it, but as a part of Azure AD Premium P2, you get the identity protection, and you also get privilege identity management. These two features are part of P2, which is Premium P2. So you need Premium P2 for that. So even Premium also you have Premium P1 and Premium P2. Premium P2 includes all features of basic up to Premium P1 plus identity protection and privilege identity management. So this is the.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yes, how about the support subscription on this free and basic and premium P1 and P2?
Yeah. Can you rephrase your question? Sorry, I didn't understand.
Yeah, so for instance, what kind of support subscription we can get it for premium P1 and P2?
Yeah. So in free you don't have any SLA. So if you look at the bottom, so there is no SLA. Microsoft doesn't guarantee you uptime. But in case of basic premium, there is SLA of 99.99%. So it's fully backed by SLA. And as far as support is concerned, I don't know what I'm talking about. Incident management reports. Incident management. You want to open a ticket with Microsoft? Those kind of things.
Okay, it's not like that. If in case we need any support engineer, or else not only incident, it should be if for example the AWS want to reserve the instances, I have to make a request to support engineer to increase my reservation. So that kind of work the support engineer can do in AWS platform. But here, if you want to get in touch with the touch bases, so what kind of support I can get it from Microsoft?
So you said reserved instance. So I still don't. In this context of Azure AD.
Okay, so if we have one subscription, so once the subscription, we have a support resource available in Microsoft rather than calling a Microsoft to engage in any of the designs and incident
so
or
that's
any of the
that's a generic question. It's not related to Azure AD, correct?
Okay.
Yeah, so that will depend on what kind of support contract you have with Microsoft.
No, that's right. You mentioned your premium on premium too. That's not involved in that. That's my question here.
No. It's nothing to do with the support. So premium P2 is only the Azure AD edition. It's a version, you can say.
Okay, cool.
So for Microsoft support, you will have to look into your support agreement, what you have with Microsoft, whether you have professional, you can open a professional incident, which is you pay $250. You can open, if you have a premier contract with Microsoft, wherein your organization has a enterprise level agreement, depending on that, you will get certain hours of support hours. So you have to route through that. So there are various ways, but that's just separate. This has, that shouldn't be confused with this premium. This is only the feature of Azure AD.
Okay, there is any benchmark to create a policy to understand each and every policies? Because if we have multiple subscription, multiple policies, how can we understand if in case if you jump in, what policies you want to change, what policies you have to add? There is any benchmark from Microsoft when you create a policy?
You can have your RBAC model. There are some design patterns which are available, which you can refer, which gives you best security practices for role-based access control. So you can refer those. Microsoft has those design patterns.
Okay, cool.
Neeraj, I have one quick question for you.
Sure.
So, not related to this. This is a fantastic presentation. Appreciate it. Where do you have this past presentations and this presentation? Did you store somewhere where I can actually go through that?
Yes, I have published all my presentation on my LinkedIn. So if you go in my LinkedIn articles, you will see that, or I can also paste it in current chat window, so you can refer all my past presentations out there.
Yeah, that would be great. Because I just want to catch up with all your presentations. I just added you a couple of days back, and I was following you, and you're doing a great job actually. So I just want to go through all the presentations.
Sure, and thank you for your feedback. I'm always looking for this kind of feedback, which helps me. In fact, also it helps me keep going and helping people. So
yeah, if anyone's time.
no problem. Your feedback is always welcome. It's not only yours, but everybody's feedback, and how can we improve it, how we can make it more interactive and more authentic, so that people make it, people find it useful.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else has any closing comments before we call it off? Call it day? Call it night?
Yeah, and yes, Reyes here.
Yeah, Presh.
So the presentation is really very good, where we have an open forum, we can ask any questions, and we are getting a proper answer. So really thanks for that. We are learning a lot.
All right, thank you. I'm glad you people are getting benefit out of it.
Thanks for your presentation.
Welcome. All right. So if no questions, no closing comments, then thank you all of us, and thank you all of you who have joined, who couldn't make it today, probably because of other reasons. And I look forward to talking to you again next week. And next week probably we will conclude Azure AD and we'll move on to virtual networking, wherein we'll go deeper into networking, VNet, subnet, NSG, CIDR, Express Route. Probably I won't be able to demonstrate Express Route, but as deeper as we can go, we'll get into Azure side. All right. Thank you, gentlemen, and talk to you next week. Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.